I just lowered this 2020 William Byron Dual Win Elite. The suspension still works. This wheel, which previously didn't move, is now moved. It's not lopsided anymore. And it doesn't scrape. If you want to know how to do this, all you're going to need is some wire cutters, a screwdriver, and maybe some glue, but hopefully not. This is my 2020 William Byron Daytona Dual Win in the Exalta Color of the Year scheme. It's an Elite, but I have a couple problems with it. When I move it back and forth, you can see that this wheel is not really touching the ground. And then it's a Daytona car and it's sitting super high up off of the ground, when in real life, a Daytona car, it sits as close to the ground as possible. I have already done a custom big wing on this car, but this video is going to be about lowering the diecast to make it more realistic. So let me grab Kyle Busch's 2020 Texas win, also an Elite. I decided to experiment on this car and lower it, and you can already tell that it sits much lower than the Byron car. But you could see that gap down here. If I get the Byron car back, that gap is much smaller on the Kyle car versus the Byron car. That's what I want to fix in this video. So this video is going to work for Elite Cup cars from 2018 to present, because in 2017 these braces and tethers inside mean that if you want to take the diecast apart, which is what we're going to do, you basically have to destroy those. So I don't want to do that. It's not worth destroying the extra detail. This will also work on ARC cars from 2013 to 2018. This is a 2013 Gen 6, and it has the working rear suspension, working front suspension. It'll work on these too. So the car we're working on today is this 2020 Dual Win. I'm going to remove the antenna and stuff just because I don't want that in the way. And our first step is going to be removing the screws from the bottom of the car. I'm going to get a cloth that's soft so I could flip the car over. I don't want to put it on a hard surface and scratch it or mess anything up. Gonna leave it like that, and I'm gonna switch the camera and be right back. So the first step is using a flathead screwdriver to pry this front piece off. Mine kind of just popped off because I've already taken it off when I did the wing. So now we have our 6 screws exposed, and we're gonna take them out. So now that we have all of the screws out, we can just lift up by the wheels, and there's your chassis. This is DIN 292. So our body, we're gonna put it back and just set it off to the side. We're gonna do the front suspension first. The front springs are attached by these 2 screws. The piece they're attached to just comes right off. So once you've removed those screws, you will have 2 pieces like this, your 2 screws. Keep those separate, and then you're gonna have your 2 springs. And they are fully detached from the car now. And now we're gonna focus solely on the springs. The best way to do this is with a nice pair of wire cutters. You're gonna take the spring, and then you're gonna put the side that you wanna keep on the flat side of the cutters. And I'm just gonna cut it. So this longer black piece is where we're gonna put the spring. And once it's on, you're gonna stick that black piece right into this hole. I'm gonna put the spring on the toothpick and just line the toothpick up with the end of that piece, and I'm just gonna slide it on, just like that. Make sure it's lined up and just drop it on, and boom, they're on. Now that each spring is on its peg, you're just gonna slide each peg into its own hole. Try and hold the wheels in place. There's that hole right next to the exhaust. That is where this little black nub is going to slot into. So I'm lining it up with the peg first, and then from there, I'm going to tuck it in into the screw hole. Take your black piece, and it is the same as the other side we just did. So there's the front suspension done. So here's our chassis again. I'm just going to put the body back on. We're gonna look at how much lower it is. 1, the wheel is spinning. 2, it is much lower in the front. So I've taken off those 4 screws. Keep them separate. You want this whole plastic piece to come off, so grab from the plastic. Sometimes these pieces up here are glued to this front part, and you just want to be very careful because it can snap. It's repairable with a little super glue, but you want to try and avoid super glue at all costs, so just be very careful. So now that the roll cage is off, we are going to unscrew these 2 screws right there. Be careful of these gold pieces, they will break. So take these 2 screws off. So now that they're out, your rear springs will just pop out. You want those 2 yellow pieces to still be attached. And now I can put this to the side, and we're left with just this. We're just going to want to remove our 2 big blue springs. So now that we have the springs off, all we need to focus on are these 2 little springs. So you're just going to put your springs right back where they went on the black piece. Just, they slide on. Now, you take your chassis back. Once we have our springs and our chassis, the first step is we're going to slide these black pieces under the metal pieces. Now, once we're here, it's very important to line these silver parts up with the gold parts without breaking them. See how I've got them in there? So now I push it in, and I'm just going to pull back on the entire assembly a little bit, and then make sure that this gold piece goes in the little hole for there. Everything is back in place. Gonna flip it back over. Make sure that these little black pieces are now fully inserted into the chassis. So next step is so now that our screws are back in, we are gonna test once again. Just slide the body on, and then we're gonna go see how it looks. So we want to make sure the body is fully on, so you could get a scope of how it looks, but already I could tell it's so much lower in the back than how it previously was. And you still do get the working rear suspension. Once you're happy with it, you're going to take your body off again. You're going to put this back on. So now that you see that all of the little pins have slotted in correctly, I'm going to take my 4 screws and screw the roll cage back down. So now that the screws are back on, I'm going to take our body, slot it on. Just look at how much lower that is. We're going to take our soft cloth back, flip the die cast back over, and then finally screw our last 6 screws in. So now we have all of the screws screwed in, even if one is in the front. If you're lucky, your last front piece will stay on without glue. But in the case that it doesn't, use very, very little glue. But now, I mean, looking at the car, it is so much lower and it looks really good. I mean, this is about the best you can get without having it like scrape across the table, fully removing the springs. Like, I mean, the suspension still works. Like, it still works. Like, you still get the features of an elite car. So actually the last step is putting the antenna back on, and then we're done. There it is, complete lowered car. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching till the end. Any suggestions, any questions, anything, feel free to comment. And if you want to see more of these diecast, I post them on my Instagram page at Diecast by Finn. If you want, feel free to follow me there. That's where I post the most. I might make more videos, maybe a diecast review. Let me know. Yeah, that's it.